Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I had a plan to talk about something, and then sitting here I just can't stop thinking about another something. So we're going to talk about that other something instead. If you're new to my channel, my name is Sarah. I talk about ADHD, mostly the ADHD experience, in hopes that maybe my experience can help you not to feel alone, understand your own experience, understand the experience of somebody else, or maybe to seek medical services if you think that you might need them for something like ADHD. Today I want to talk about the concept of laziness. I don't even really like saying the word. Laziness is not a thing that I believe is real, or I don't believe that it's an accurate way to describe anybody. The idea of laziness is that not being productive is a moral issue. That's essentially what the connotations of laziness are. And I can speak for the society that I live in, which is in the United States, where we are very capitalist. And so the worth of a human lies solely in their ability to be productive. So I think that it's become a thing where for onlookers or for society who may not understand a person's experience or their position or their mental health or their cognitive capacity, to look on those people and just call them lazy, because it makes it so that the observer doesn't feel responsible to help those people or to make any sort of accommodations, allowances, provide space or understanding for those people. It kind of allows them to feel as though the lazy ones are people who deserve to be written off in that way. And I think that not only is that harmful, and if you've been on the receiving end of that sort of judgment, you probably know exactly the harm I'm talking about, but also I believe, and maybe more relevantly, that it is inaccurate. So years ago, I was talking with a behavioral therapist, and she was saying that people do well when they can. Actually, what she said was that children do well when they can, because we were talking about children. But I think that that can be applied more broadly to people, to say that people do well when they can. And of course, the term doing well is subjective and all of these things. But if we're talking strictly about productivity, or maybe just the ability to live what could be considered a self-sufficient and healthy life, I think that people do well at that when they can. And I think there are two ways to look at those who are not necessarily doing well at that, and in one way or another, right? It could be many different aspects of life that a person is struggling to kind of uphold to the expected standard. But I think one way of looking at it is that that person is lazy. For example, if that person is not employed, or if they are having a hard time keeping their job or a hard time performing their duties at their job, or, if they have a messy home, or fill in the blank. One way to look at those people is that they are lazy. And another way, and I think a more truthful way, is to look at people who are struggling with things like this and to understand that they are struggling. If we adopt this way of thinking, which says that people do well when they can, it actually allows us to see, and it prompts us to look for things in someone's life that may be hampering their ability to be productive, if you will, just because that's the measure by which we judge in the society whether people are lazy. And so it's really interesting, because thinking on my own life and even those of some people in my life that I've observed, I can say that, I feel, as a person who never finished college, I feel like I am viewed as sometimes lazy, sometimes like, oh, well, of course you're not successful in your career because you didn't work hard in high school to get the good grades. You didn't, bend over backward and kill yourself to get through college and to be able to get a job from that, having had that experience and that degree. And so I think that people sometimes can understand themselves as successful people by way of contrasting themselves with the ones who are not, and seeing like, I am here in my position because I worked really hard, and I wasn't lazy. And by contrast, people like me are in the position that we are in because we were lazy and we didn't work hard. And I think that it has taken me until recent years and months to really kind of intentionally think about this and try to understand myself in this regard, because I've always had this kind of dissonance in my understanding of myself, because I know that I am not a lazy person, and I know that I am not an unintelligent person or an incapable person. And I also know that I have worked just as hard, if not harder, than every person that I know that is successful. And what I've come to realize is that as people with ADHD, we have to inherently face a reality where we do have to work 10 times as hard as everyone else just to get the same results as they do. And so if you think about it, it's like a cycle that you can get trapped in that takes place in your mind but is informed by the outside world, where you work really hard, you measure yourself against the standards that everyone is measured by, which are not meant for you and can't measure your actual effort. And when you measure yourself against that yardstick and you realize that you're falling short compared to other people, then you start to tell yourself a story about how hard you do work and how valuable you actually are and how worthy you actually are and how deserving you actually are in comparison to them. And then you're informed by the outside world, by others, by just messages in society that you are lazy because you're not measuring up. And then that takes away any dopamine, any motivation, any sense of accomplishment, any sense of hope or sense that you can have confidence in your ability to achieve. And so it's this cycle that feeds itself, because I know as a person with ADHD, if you don't have those things, hope, a sense of confidence that you can achieve, dopamine, there's absolutely zero method by which you can achieve. And I think that probably goes for everyone, except when you're in a cycle where you're able to meet the expectations of society, of school, things like that. You're being reinforced in the direction that makes you believe in yourself. Whereas if you're falling short on that metric, you are having a reinforcing experience that makes you believe the opposite. So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy that encourages the people who are neurotypical, or maybe even have things like ADHD but are able to mask their symptoms enough that they can achieve, and they kind of internalize all of the stress and the conflict of that dynamic rather than letting it show on the outside. And those people are encouraged and uplifted and lauded, which there's nothing wrong with. But then the people who are struggling to appear outwardly as those people are being discouraged, and the messages that they're getting are going to further bring them down. So I hope that this makes sense. And I want to kind of deliver this in a hopeful way, because I think that once you realize that the fact that you're stuck in that cycle has nothing to do with your moral value, with any kind of value that you might have. It doesn't really have anything to do with laziness or work ethic. That's not even a part of the conversation when you realize that there are actual cognitive and chemical barriers that are preventing you from achieving in the same ways as others under certain circumstances. Then it allows you to kind of be free of the mental and emotional burden of that, which is to feel as though you are less than, as though you are less deserving, to feel as though there is shame on you or on the way that you were made. I think that once you're able to kind of crawl out from under that particular part of it, I think it makes it easier to see things a little more clearly and to tell yourself an accurate story about yourself. And I hope that telling yourself a story where you do believe that you are capable and that you are worthy, and that even if you don't have a productive day ever in your life, that doesn't make you lazy. I hope that can help you, because sometimes half the battle is just the story that we're telling ourselves and the things that we believe about ourselves. There's a quote that I think of often in the context of this type of discussion, and according to the internet, it's by Albert Einstein. And it says, "Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid." And that is so poignant to me, and I think that it really is a good analog for the experience that people with ADHD and maybe people with other neurodivergencies experience, which is that we are living in a world that was built for neurotypical people, and we have to understand that when we fall short in that world, it is not because we fall short as human beings. So I hope that this was encouraging. I have more to say on the topic of laziness, and the main point, though, is that I just want you to understand that it doesn't really matter who or how many people call you lazy or believe that you're lazy or treat you like you are lazy or treat you as though because of your output in society or lack thereof, you are less worthy. It doesn't really matter if people think that, because they just may not understand that you are living in a world that wasn't built for you, and you're doing your best. And you're probably working 10 times harder than they are just to appear as though you might fit in at any moment, because I know that's my experience. So let me know in the comments what you think of this style of video and this particular topic, but I hope it resonates with some of you. I know it was a little bit rambly, but it was meant to be just encouraging. So anyway, leave any requests that you have down below, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.